right, you might remember that I mentioned I usually like to start from the bottom here just to make sure that everything's going right here. But in this case, because I have this white border in the selvage, I'm gonna, and of course sometimes I have no choice, like I have a white selvage on both sides. So then I'll be pinning it really carefully. But in this case, I can just keep an eye on that white selvage by starting my stitching from the top. Now, this binding is actually at an angle and I want to follow that angle. So I want to not stitch perpendicular to the binding right here. I want to stitch at a slight angle so that I come into that line properly. And we'll see in a minute when I stitch the front open Y. So I want to get to the spot where I'm going to start in, and in this case I haven't pinned the top, but I can see that the top is right right on top of each other, but that's a really important phase. So let's go ahead and just pin it. I don't want to teach you bad habits. So in this case, I want to pin it right there so that I really know that my two pieces are matching right at the top, because that's going to be so visible to everybody. All right. And so when I come down, I have a risk that I'll come right down on that pin. And look at that, I got all that extra thread in there. And now I'm being really careful. Oh, something's wrong, I can hear it, and it's important just to stop. Yep. Anytime you hear that something's wrong, it's better just to stop and sort it out than to keep going. All right, so I think I just had some thread that was looped around itself. I can take this extra pin out, so I've essentially kind of used thread to pin it. That sounds better now. All right, let's start again and see if we can figure out what the deal was. Okay, well, it sounds fine now. So, but it's really important to keep an ear out for what your stitching sounds like. I hear kind of a popping sound, but that's the stiffness of the printed cotton that I'm working on too. And so, and I'm taking it kind of slow because I'm following the white line here that I can see. I don't want to have any weird whiteness showing up next to my skulls. I'm also going to take it slow when I come here because I want to make sure that that's pointed in the right direction and that I don't get any buildup ahead of this pin. This pin is matching the two sets of seams there, which I had carefully ironed, pointing in the opposite direction so I wouldn't have any extra thickness. And you can see that I have a 5/8 seam allowance because of that white selvage, and so I'm just going to go ahead and keep that 5/8 seam allowance all the way down the front. And if this was a crucial difference in fit for me, of course I would have had to plan extra because I had such a deep selvage, but it's not actually, for me, in the front, such a crucial element of fit to have a slightly deeper seam allowance. So isn't that cute? I had two little pins next to each other like they're buddies. I slowed the speed down because I was doing the sleeves, but now I can pop that speed back up, and I'm coming down to the bottom. So if I had any extra fabric, now's the time to kind of give it a little bit of a pull to make sure that it all smooths out as I come to this last set of pins, which will be hidden. The match between the binding and the bottom will be hidden as we fold it under. You can see it doesn't quite match there. That's okay. Give that a knot and a cut. And now when I open it in these couple of tricky spots, we can see, yes, I lined it up perfectly. And get these pins out. Is that double pin? And let's double check this spot right here. Yes, very nice. And then last but not least, this spot up here. Yes, very nice. And I'm going to take out all of this extra thread while I'm here because I need to do the one last little trick. I'm going to fold this edge down like that. right there to hide the raw edge of the binding, and I'm going to pin it to itself, but a tiny bit to the outside. I'm going to fold this one down there to hide the binding edge, and I'm going to pin it also to itself. And now I'm going to give it the little triangle in the top, and there's so many different ways I can do this. I've tried it all, and the way that I'm currently liking is to follow this edge, and because of the angle here, I'm going to need to have my triangle end here, but I can start it just a tiny bit earlier. Make sure everything's smooth. So I'm going to follow the stitch in the ditch. I'm going to follow it around. And I'm even going to like tilt the whole thing a little bit until I get to what my finger tells me, my little fingernail right there tells me is the edge. And then I put the needle down. I'm going to spin it like this, pointing right at the top. Put the needle down. I'm going to spin it like this, pointing at the bottom. And at this point now, I could decide to take this pin out if it's making me nervous. Okay, and now I have this nice, neat little triangle there that is in fact holding all of this down. And I'll make sure to really clip all this carefully so that I don't cause it to fray, but I remove all the extra. All right, you might have seen me in a video earlier pinning this binding in a few spots. And now that I've sewn the front, I can in fact finish pinning it down right here in the middle. Now I could iron all this, but as long as I'm going to do the ironing, I might as well do the ironing of everything, including the binding. And that's part of the reason why I ironed this folding in the right direction previously. So I'm going to feel it with my fingers to make sure that everything is nice and smooth in there, even without the ironing. Pin it in a couple of times. And then this is where you have to ask yourself, do I like the thread that I have in my bobbin, or do I like the thread that I have on top? And the reason you're going to ask yourself this is because if you're a beginner, then it in fact can be a little bit better, a little bit easier to stitch this by stitching it from this side, in which case the bobbin thread is what's going to show. So I asked myself that question. The bobbin thread in my machine is a tiny bit lighter than my top stitching, but you know what? I think that little bit of contrast will be nice. I am not going to start in the center front. I'm actually going to start here on the side seam, and that's because why have extra thread, overlap of thread that shows in the front? Why not have it on the side? I can see that, let's see here, my bobbin thread down there it is. I'm going to pull it out because I really want to make sure that I have a handle on it for when I start so that I don't end up with a little jam that would show more because I'm stitching on this side. Now, if I've ironed this evenly and I stitched it on evenly, then I might be able to follow something here, right, and make sure that I have an even distance. That this is what will be showing on the front, right? In the front, nobody will be able to see where the binding ends. So the important thing is just to know, okay, I have about that much room to play. If I follow this line over here, then sometimes I might be close to the edge, sometimes I might be a little further over, but I have about 3/8 of an inch to wobble back and forth and ensure that I catch the folded binding. And so now that I've gotten started, I know that I didn't have a tangle with those threads. I can toss them back out of the way. And I'm following this edge clear over here, but I'm keeping an eye on things to make sure that that is giving me suitable catch on that binding. And I'm also making sure to sort of smooth things with my hand down here as I approach, so that I don't end up with rumples that are stitched in on the front. And the rumples would happen anytime I came up to a pin right? And so I can feel the pin here with my hand, and I can feel all the rest of it with my hand, and I know that it's nice and smooth. I can pull the rumples out because this is on the bias, right? So I can just stretch this a little bit if I have to. And I'm going to iron the whole thing when I'm done, and so my main goal is just to make sure that I don't end up wobbling off of my binding. Right here it's a little bit tricky because my binding is the same color as my fabric, you know, as the facing fabric, but just in just a moment I'm going to cross over the middle, and then I'll have a contrast that I can see for the rest of the time. So I'm going to show you how to manage crossing over the middle here. And I can feel like I might have had a little bit of a bunch up there. I definitely don't want to have that happen in the center front. I don't care if this seam points to that seam, right? Nobody can see it, you know, but what I don't want to have is my pin have caused little gathers in the front. So I want it to be nice and smooth as I come around. And so if I pull this out to examine what I've done so far, I can see that I've caught the binding all the way around, that my bobbin looks nice on this particular fabric. It's a little bit lighter, right? And that I don't have any rumpling areas where the pins are. So I'm going to go ahead and finish stitching this without you, but I'm going to keep repeating these processes until I get all the way to the end. I said I'd go all the way to the end, but I found a case where I ironed it and I got a little bit close. So if I have to choose between running off the edge of the binding here and having it be a tiny bit narrower there, I'm going to choose having it be a tiny bit narrower there. Right, so I slow down and will just really eye it to make sure that I don't run off the top of the binding. If I had used store-bought binding, then I would have known that everything was always exactly the same width, but the benefits of using my own binding are worth having an occasional very subtle dip in a seam line that people mostly can't see, caused by my own ironing. I think that could have happened even with store-bought binding. So it's happening again here, right? You might see that I'm coming a little bit away, but what I'm doing is making sure. Now, if I didn't like the bobbin thread, and so I was sewing from the other side, I would have to be feeling this with my fingers the whole time to make sure that I wasn't straying. And that's possible, right? You could feel the binding through the surface of the fabric. But the risk that you might not quite feel it right and come off the edge of the binding and have to re-stitch it, that risk is real. It really exists. So now here I am in the center back. So I have 2 pins there as well because I butterflied that seam. Sometimes I don't, right? It depends on if I had selvage. Right? And here again, I'm being careful not to run off of my binding. And then I need to basically make sure that I match this up nicely so that I don't have any nasty looking bits on the front. Let's see if I was successful. Yeah, so I would call that a win, right? Not quite exactly on top of itself, but really nice and subtle. And again, it's on the side, so nobody would even see it. Okay, so now I can do the ironing and my shirt is finished. One thing you'll notice is that I stitched this whole thing right here in essentially in my lap so that I could keep you on view. But this is one part of the shirt where I would normally absolutely be running off to an ironing board, because then it would be so fast to slip this whole thing, right, the whole garment onto the ironing board and be able to iron, just spinning it around to get all the pins out as I was ironing, right, and it would just end up being so fast. But I want you to be able to join me, so I'm using this little felt ironing pad, which is, of course, super handy for craft ironing, right? Because you can just keep it right next to so if you're doing quilting, for example. So in this case, I'm going to smooth it out because I'm ironing both layers at the same time. But as you can see now's my chance, right? Just iron that out right there and get this bottom edge, right, nicely ironed. I think my iron went to sleep while I was busy talking to you. It'll wake up in a second, and then I'll start to hear the steam coming through. So it's not doing a bad job, it's just not as much as usual. And then if I wanted to get the other bit without ironing an edge in it, right, I would just flip it like that. So the light's on, so any minute now it will start putting out a lot of heat. But very nice looking. I will really enjoy wearing this shirt on, well, I don't have class on Halloween, but I will wear it on Halloween, but I'll wear it on the class day prior to Halloween so that my students can see my Halloween spirit. This is the time when you'd go through the shirt and just double check that there's no additional threads that need to be cleaned up. So I'm not ironing the sleeves through right there. I will in fact use an ironing board to iron the top of the sleeves because that's even that is, I do have a wooden sleeve block that I could use to iron. It's meant for like men's suiting, but I just haven't gotten it out of the closet. But here we go, all ready. So when I turn it right side out, you'll be able to see it in all its glory. And then I'll try to add a video of me. There we go. Oh, golly, isn't that great? I made a really good choice by having the skulls on the sleeve in the front, so it's really just right in your face. And then, of course, my beloved very deep pockets. Yay! Ha ha ha. I wonder if I'll be able to speed those videos up. I accidentally recorded on slow-mo, all the ironing on slow-mo. That must have been practically torture. But hopefully I can just use some editing software to fix that. But here is my shirt, all ready to go. Super cute looking. I'm really excited.